Okay, it's another Saturday morning. Here you are. Ladies and gentlemen, glad you joined us. You're probably not seeing this at Saturday morning, but that's when we do it. And guess who I have in the studio with headphones this time, ladies and gentlemen?
Jeffrey Epstein.
No! What? The ghost of Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you can see we're in trouble already, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to do with that, but maybe someone will help us out here. So how are you, sir? How was your day? You said you had a pretty rough week.
Well, it's just
and you're
very
trying
busy.
to
The semester is coming to a close, and I'm feeling the weight of it. Like and I always tell, because if I wake up on a Saturday morning in a bad mood, that's when I can tell I'm approaching burnout, saturation point.
You really okay? Well, let's just break that down for just a second here. You don't feel it until that Saturday. I mean, that's when you wake up and you
If
go.
you have
Wait.
a hypomanic defense structure, you just sort of grind and you put your pedal to the metal and you work, but then it catches up you in the morning, on Saturday morning, because you wake up and you're like, why did I take a punch at the cat? Like, it's just not.
Yeah, why would
I wouldn't punch my cat.
do
So
not
that would
kick
never
the
happen.
cat for any
Right.
in any
Trust
reason,
me,
shape,
I
or
would
form.
never kick or punch a cat. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I find myself, my fuse is short, so any minute I could start cursing or turn this table over. You don't know.
Right. Well, I've been with you long enough to know I'm ready for anything. Tables flying over, banana peels being left in different spots, all kind of things like that. I'm
Jeffrey Epstein.
trying to get a hand to Jeffrey Epstein.
I think we should
Do you
get a
have any
Ouija
of those?
board. We should get a Ouija board and contact him. That could be part of the show. We contact Jeff Epstein, and he can answer some questions.
I want to tell you that there's probably some folks out there doing that. This is the world we're living in, and let's don't follow in their footsteps, okay? No more seances here on Got Therapy. That's a new rule. No more seances. Well, did we have one that started? I don't know, but I'm
I don't know.
just drawing that rule.
I think, isn't Jared from Subway, he's still alive?
Did he make it? I guess, yes. He lost all that weight, and then something happened with him. What
Yeah.
happened?
Well, I remember him saying he always wanted to get into smaller pants. I remember him saying that.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no control. How do I don't know. I can't get away from this. I'm involved. Somehow there's video there, and here I am, and I can't leave. We talked about a lot of things over time, but we're really trying to help folks figure out how to deal with the stress and the stuff that comes at them in a little bit as we talk about.
And I think we got to
That's
number 6 last time.
We did. We were on the here.
I think we got 6 more to go.
I'm happy that we're halfway through with something. That means that we actually started,
that's
and
right,
we may
yeah.
get a chance to end on things.
We could. I'm anxious to how it ends. I'm hoping that it doesn't end. It may end with gummies. You mentioned gummies, and you took a few
I know.
few
Might
minutes
need
this morning.
some gummies coming up with
Might have,
just this conversation. We might
Yeah,
need something. But all
You know,
right. So
jelly babies. They used to call them. I think in Britain they're called jelly babies. Gummies are.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Jelly babies.
And is that a well? Why?
I don't know. There are lots of things that they do over across the pond. Bangers and mash.
Yeah,
That-
the
that-
bangers
that's-
and mash, and our audio is killing it right now. We want to be aware that we're sorry for the intrusion here, but I'm working on it, and we're going to get something going here in just a minute. So pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll done this before. Dan goes to his phone.
Sorry, there was an emergency this morning, and I had to check to make sure that it wasn't ongoing. And technically,
Oh.
it sort of is, but it doesn't involve me. I'm out of the. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Listen, on a serious note, you had to deal with an emergency this morning. Someone, a client or a
Student.
just a student that probably not a client at this point. But I don't want to get into the details, but I'm just curious a little bit about what kind of, in general, are you seeing more people kind of responding to what's going on in our lives in some sort of crisis. It seems like everything is a little heightened more than it was. Is that your take on things?
I mean, yeah. First off, it gets heightened around this time of year because of the end of the semester, everything. So there's academic stressors that sort of push people in different directions, overwhelm, and that sort of stuff. There's also, if you haven't noticed, the news, economic woes. There's a lot of stress and pressure. Period. So that's a thing.
Well,
Also,
yeah.
I'm sure. I was trying to think of. I had a sarcastic comment that I just lost.
You see, and I want to comment on that because that doesn't happen, that never happens. There's always there's a comeback or a
That shows you how
something
tired
that
I
gets
am.
in, and the problem might be that you, my friend,
Mm-hmm.
are suffering stress.
I am. I'm looking forward to. I'm going to take the week of Thanksgiving off, though. Things keep popping up.
Most people already have that off, but go
Well,
ahead.
Well, actually, things have.
Or at
have-
least a few days.
My
or something.
Monday just had something put on it that I'm going to have to attend. So.
Here goes the regime at the university. Here we've heard it before, but soon you will be in a better place because I want to read off.
You mean when
some
I'm
of
dead? I will be in a better
not-
place, or a worse place. It really depends on how this adds up.
Yeah, I
Really,
don't know. I'm not putting bets either way on that. But listen, if you are in stress, as I just kind of pointed out, because you had a rough week, but you're doing a good job. You're trying to get through this, and we
Yeah.
want to find out how.
But that does remind me when we talked about that Epstein thing. I think he's gone, and I think right now every time we talk about him, I think he's looking up at us. You know what I'm saying?
I think he is too, but we don't have any facts in the case. But what I'd like you to think about is the first 6 things in this happiness that we covered
That's
last week. We'll get to the new ones. So here we go. The first one is to cultivate
Meth.
wrong.
Okay. Cultivate.
Optimism, my friend.
Optimism.
We cultivate optimism,
That sucks.
and we stop overthinking and comparing.
Don't worry. Thinking is
that
not something I do much
Judgment,
of.
all that judgment
Comparing.
stuff. Okay. Do kind things for others. That's it's high on my list right there.
Look,
You know
I tell
that.
you, if you pay me, I'll do kind things. I have a.
There is a cost, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And also, mind and feed your relationships. Mind and tend to those relationships.
And feed them.
Well,
do-
that's the term that they used, so
how-
I
to
repeated
feed
it.
a relationship. That's big hunks of tofu. That's good for a relationship.
Bring food. Okay, I got that. Develop coping strategies, my friend, is the next one, but I don't know what.
Well, did we actually talk about them? Because just to reiterate that, to feed a relationship. So
Okay, we'll go back.
Folks may not have some idea what that means, right? So to feed a relationship and to be mindful that you have one. And relationships require something, right? There is a mutuality that can be missed if you're not careful.
Right. Oh, yeah. And it's not relationships are not magical, and I think they pointed that out in some way. But the idea of feeding and nurturing your relationships is something that's very important for all of us to do.
Did we talk about this last time? But that Gottman's notion of bids, and that part of the way you feed a relationship is you listen for, consciously or unconsciously, if you're minding, I guess it's consciously,
Okay.
that your partner, your friends, the people in life, they have bids for connection, and you have to be able to be aware of those and meet those bids, and that oftentimes
Bids like in an auction. You put in a bid for this. Is that how that's what you're talking about?
that's how I got that stuffed beaver. It's an auction. Nobody
I
wanted
don't
it.
want to know.
But well, a bid is like if it is an action taken by an individual that is to be able to generate a connection from someone else. So the simplest one is if you're in a couple or relationship, and you come home and your partner says something to you like, "How was your day?"
Right.
So that is a bid. There's a bid for communication and connection.
Okay. Okay. All right. I follow that. Go ahead.
And how you respond to that is important, and that could cultivate and feed a relationship. If you say, shut the hell up, that does not feed the relationship, right?
No, that's not never worked.
But most folks they may give a cursory reply, it was fine, and then walk past their partner and go take off their shoes, and then, open a brewski and turn on curling, something. They'll do something, right?
Yeah, beer and curling doesn't go. They don't go together. But it's probably something that we can make that connection somehow.
But the goal would be is that in those moments, if you recognize that your partner is attempting to make a connection, how do you give that a name and then do something with it in those moments? And the research that Gottman has done has shown that folks, the ability to be able to listen to and respond positively to a bid is very important in keeping a relationship going. Relationships are doomed if bids are ignored.
Wow. So when you hear your partner asking about your day, we need to do something with that incoming, right? That input there. And that may be paying attention and being in the moment, right? I think that's what we need to do, and maybe figure out a nice response to that.
Things are so bad at my house. The only person who asks me how my day is going is the pool boy. And then I say, I respond, then I ask, what are you doing in my bed?
Right. First of all, you don't have a pool, so why is the pool boy there? But that's no joke.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Wait a minute. I don't got a pool.
All right. I don't know where how we bring this back out, but yeah. So bids, it's that connection that we need to nurture in that moment. Now that makes sense to me. I really think that. It's that communication, and in that communication, there's so many levels of how you feel and what you go. Everything is kind of tied up into that sometimes, but we often dismiss it. And if we had that bad day, it's really easy to just kind of float. Yeah, fine, moving on. When you really need to pay attention to that moment. Need to pay more attention. Is what it sounds like right there.
So it sounds like you do.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, you just suddenly realize something. Well, you use the word dismiss because obviously if there's marital tension, one can dismiss that. Probably what happens for most folks is they are sort of they are numb to it, or they are numbed by the stressors of their day, and so they simply miss those opportunities because they're preoccupied, because they're stressed, whatever the case may be. And so you use the word mindful. So, I mean, sometimes when I do couples work, especially if we're working on sort of rebuilding some sort of connection, you can ask folks to say, okay, if your partner has got home before you did, or has been home all day, what do you need to do in the before you get out of the car to reorient yourself? How can you How can you transition, allow yourself to move from work to home, and to be able to be mindful and intentional of how to be of the connection and the bid that's about to happen, right?
Right. I think so. Yeah, and the idea that you are taking that moment to sort of reorient yourself into a new environment or a different environment. So it's real easy, I think, to just continue that. All right, so you're in traffic, the guy cuts you off, and you get out of your car at home, and you're still angry. You bring that right into the house. So you have to do some work before you just continue. For one, you have to be mindful, as the term implies, of your emotional state and what's going on with you in that moment, so you can make those changes. Because otherwise, you just carry it and carry it and carry it. And I think a lot of people grudges and other kind of things, but emotional stuff seems to stick with you. Yeah.
Those are two words that I think often that need to go together. There's mindful, which is the first step, because suddenly you bring yourself into awareness and you have the possibility of a response, right? The possibility of being able to, instead of simply reacting and being so that we want to combine mindfulness with intentionality. So mindfulness is suddenly you allow yourself to be awake, and intentionality gives you the potential for action. So how can I be intentional in this moment to step into to my house, my apartment, whatever the case may be, and to be aware that there is a relationship to cultivate. And it's possible too that if you're stressed, that suddenly seems like you suddenly have this weight on your shoulders. One more thing I have to do. But the catch is,
that's how I framed it a little bit. But
but if it flows two ways, the benefit of a connection is that it's good for you too. that the moment that and I've had several folks say, and this sort of crosses my mind, like, my day's over, I don't want to really talk about it. Like, oh, it was a day, that's just the mind.
Right.
But there's even a way in that moment that probably if someone is asking you how your day was, they may really want to know. But they're also wanting to engage you. So there's lots of ways to make use of that moment. You don't have to go through the quotidian moments of your day, but you have the potential to be in the presence of someone that you care about and cultivates care for you, and you can cultivate care for them, and then it flows both ways, and things are good.
Hey, we need to have that written down somewhere. Maybe there's a transcript for what
I got a tattoo
and a tattoo. But holding on to the grudges and being angry and road rage, or as I use my example, but there are plenty of others that, man, it's hard to unhook from that almost immersive emotion that you're carrying. This anger is really one that we're all familiar with, and that's where we go in a lot of things. And so, man, I want to go, wait, I'm angry up to the door, and the door opens, and now I'm in paradise again. I don't know how you shut that continual stuff off, and you say to yourself, hey, man, I'm wasting a lot of time here. What am I doing? Those kind of things. So, but I mean, we're talking about it as it's somewhat intellectual, if you will. You just make up your mind to do that. But man, it just seems like it just stays a little too long and enters the relationship, and then when it enters relationship, there's another set of problems that you just introduced.
Well, I think that's why the idea of, like, with some couples that I work with, the idea is that let's create a space before you leave your car. You've pulled up into your apartment, your house, whatever the case may be. How do you make use of that space to be able to first do a little self-care, to be able to sort of gather yourself? Again, it requires some mindfulness to give yourself permission to do that, and then to be able to be intentional in what that looks like. Right. So if on the way in, there was lots of road rage, you punched some guy on a scooter, whatever the case may be, you pull up. The goal at that moment is that there is the potential to be able to take a breath and to reorient yourself to the place you're in. And remember, I think we've talked about this before, but part of the issue is that I was mentioning sort of being stressed. The goal is to have a life, not the life have you. And if your life has you, you're in this prey state. You are being, there's a predator, which is the life, your job, the things that you have to do. So you are in this prey state, and it is hard to be connected to yourself or others if you're being pursued by something with teeth. Right?
Right, absolutely.
And so part of the goal is if you can orient yourself and reground yourself, you can give yourself the perspective you need to say, no, that's not the case. There is, the life that I have is my life. I can find balance before I step into the door. And I don't know if the next thing I think we talked about too was coping strategies.
Right, and that's a big
part of what we're talking about right now is coping strategies.
Sure.
How do you most folks don't realize it, but they literally are in that prey state the moment they get up in the morning until they go to bed at night. And so suddenly they're unable to sleep. Their sleep is, it sets in motion all sorts of things to suddenly you've generated a level of emotional toxicity because you're constantly in that state.
This state, as you delineated, this is a prey. You're being preyed upon. Mm-hmm. Something is attacking you in some way.
Your life is the predator, and you are the prey. You're weak. The Sunday willies the people get. That's part of what happens when you begin to feel that on Sunday is that your nervous system feels as if you're about to enter a dangerous situation on Monday. So suddenly you're in this state of potentially being preyed upon, and your body reacts accordingly.
Well, I think yes, but it comes back down to some sort of, it almost sounds like a intellectual pursuit that I'm first of all, I have to acknowledge something. I have to think about it. I'm out of the car. I'm getting to the door, as we use this example. Might be too much now, but I've got to do a lot of mental work to get this down. Is it all cognitive in this way? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that I guess it does
I mean,
sound
that's an
like
unfair question, but yeah,
yeah.
I just
Well,
realize
well,
that.
I hear that. No, that's an important question because, I think often that's why we talk in here about breath. It's more along the lines of just, I like that Buddhist image that, we often go through life as a clenched fist. And it's really more a matter of just relaxing and letting your fist open. So part of what we're describing is not work, but letting go. And there may be some initial work in noticing that your fist is clenched, but the next step is you take that breath and you let go. So it doesn't necessarily have to be work in that sense, or even
Right.
intellectual. It's just okay.
Sorry.
Whew, I'm gonna take a breath, and suddenly I think most of us have had the experience where we suddenly feel ourselves relax, and we didn't realize we were tense, right?
Right.
And so in those moments of relaxation, you are actually doing less. You've suddenly sat down in a chair. You've suddenly kicked your feet up, and suddenly you can feel some weight lifting off you.
Mm-hmm.
All what we're saying in this is give yourself permission to do that as often as you can in strategic places, and be intentional in being able to allow yourself to let go throughout your day.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the most stressful job or the most stressful life has moments throughout the day where you can breathe and let go. Right?
Right.
There should be
Yes.
some sort of, and I often use this analogy with folks I work with. Our life can be a march or it can be a dance. Our goal is, if we can, to make it a dance. And a dance requires some fluidity, the possibility of stepping away, stepping back in. There's some sort of movement or rhythm to it. Whereas the march is just, you're pedal to the metal. I have to go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
How do you intentionally allow yourself to breathe, to dance, to flow in ways that you often don't if you're in this constant state of being preyed upon by the things in your life?
Wow. Yeah, that's so important because I really feel like people are under a lot of stress and pressure right now. And of course, if you look at the long cycle of this, and several of my friends have pointed out this, this is a global cycle that goes through millennia, and this is this is a normal curve of how we deal with things. But I'm not so sure at this particular moment because there's so many invading problems that are coming up for all of us. So we've got to do a better job. So I like what you said. We do need to sort of find that time, and maybe there's a natural way to just sort of sit down, breathe, and just kind of get yourself back together. It seems like that is also important. But then the one after this of developing coping strategies is to forgive. You got to forgive. Wow, that sounds like.
Sounds
like,
like-
if you've held that grudge for so long, but now if it's somebody,
Sounds like being a wimp to me.
you see,
That's not a man thing.
that's not a man. Well, we got to talk about
not
that at some
manly.
point. That's another show altogether. We got to get
forgive.
there at some point. But this notion of
Look, I want to.
forgiving is pretty important. In
I
our
want
whole
to
world.
enjoy the lamentations of my enemies.
Yes, drink the tears. That's what I've heard so
yes.
much of that. It's
Yeah.
the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Drink some tears of the other.
First off, that would be a
Opponents.
lousy drink. That would
Firstly,
really.
it's too much salt in those
Really,
things.
it's
Come
not,
on,
yeah,
what
it's
are
not.
you talking about?
It's also nasty because you don't want to be drinking. That's drinking someone else's emissions. That's just disgusting.
No, that is totally disgusting. And what I would say about forgiveness is that we need to practice that because, hey, maybe there's some things we need forgiveness for that we've done, and certainly the other people.
Well, there's a
you have
saying,
to balance that out.
especially in trauma work, and there's some controversy over this. To be able to move through trauma doesn't mean you have to forgive the person who's wronged you.
Right.
But in trauma work, you forgive not for the other's sake, but for your sake. Because when you forgive, they no longer live rent-free in your mind. That's a form of letting go. It's like, okay, and part of what can happen in forgiveness, particularly in trauma work, is once you begin to mentalize yourself and forgive yourself, because often folks who've experienced trauma internalize the trauma in a way that they see themselves as responsible for it, which keeps them tied in it. But when they can own their own humanity, then it's much easier for them also to see the humanity in their attacker or their assailants.
Right.
And when that happens, there's the possibility of just sort of forgiving and letting go, because there is something about the way the world works, that bad things happen, and that there is that is, and there's even, I've worked with trauma folks who have to, if they come from a religious perspective, they have to forgive God, right? So
Right.
there's something about forgiveness that allows you to live in the moment, because when you're in a state of non-forgiveness, you are either trapped in the past or future retribution, and it keeps you from being present at the moment you're in. So forgiveness allows you to live in the moment.
Wow, I like the way you said that, because I mean, holding on to grudges and being angry, that takes a lot of energy to carry that over for so long for some people, it seems like, and the ability to sort of do this in a flow, which is the next kind of thing, find your flow, which I think is kind of an interesting notion. Maybe we need to explain that a little bit, but where you really feel good, things are going well, you found your place. It's like, when the guy in the article says, when you ask people, it could be anything from crocheting to canoeing or whatever the person is.
And don't crochet a canoe, by the way. There's a lot of problems with that. That's that.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, what I have to deal with. Okay, that's okay. But I was trying to make that notion that find that spot and be able to get to it again, I guess, in some ways. Because they talk about increase the flow experience.
The flow. Yeah, that sounds like what people who have, if your prostate's enlarged, that's really, there's a lot of work on.
Okay. Yeah, there's all that flow. Yeah, you see the pharmaceutical company putting those commercials up on the TV all the time. So yeah, there's a interference with the flow in another way, but that's not what we're talking about. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Back to topic.
I think at some point we should talk about my prostate, though. I think there could be a couple of shows on that.
This may be a solo adventure because I won't be there. But anyway, so let me ask you.
Flow. You're talking about flow.
What's your flow, my friend? What do you got there?
Did I flow?
Yeah.
So we're not talking about my prostate.
No, we're not talking about your prostate.
It's interesting because you talk about, because I have a real interest in music and other things too. But and I began my Saturday morning getting up really early so I can listen to music. What's that squirrel just?
There it could be.
But sounds like
what somebody said. The sounds of the studio. I think that was Todd Rundgren back in the day. But anyway, yeah.
So for me, often we want to define a flow state, and the way I sort of think about a flow state is it's we call it in psychoanalytic circles. It's going on being. It often occurs in an act of play where you're not necessarily aware of the flow of time. You just are, right? Mm-hmm. That, if you look at the clock and 20 minutes has passed and you've been in this state of just sort of ecstasy or mild, it could be euthymic, mild euthymia, but you're just sort of present and experiencing something. And so, and Freud talked about that in those moments that our self state dissipates. The ego is temporarily suspended, and so part of what health could look like is you need to have the capacity for some diffusion of the ego, because you don't need to think; you just are.
Right.
So there's this, so flow state is that, and I think when I'm really enjoying music, that's a flow state. Like you're just really sort of in this thing. If you're reading a book and you feel that just sense of, or watching a movie.
It does, and it doesn't mean that you're obsessed with something and you're only focused on that, because you can have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things going on. You're not sort of just focused on one thing.
Well, you can feel there is a psychokinetic movement. There is a rhythm in those moments, and anybody. And at some point we probably should talk about this too, because the notion of how important is play and our ability to be to have a healthy life, and that maybe one of these things.
I think absolutely. You just came up with the next one, and that's savoring life's experience, is enjoying life, being in that moment and enjoying things. So savor life's joys.
Savors life's joys.
Yes, yeah. That's a tongue
what
twister.
What if your life is sauerkraut? I don't know. Savoring joys. I
I don't know how you're going to make a joke out of that, but I'll stick around and see what happens. All right, I mean, the things that you really enjoy, you just mentioned it. It was music. I mean, you get into that music, and it kind of takes you places, past, present, and sometimes future. Yeah, so maybe working with clients to try to help find their spot, their enjoyment, that when they're in that zone.
Well, think of things that get in the way of being able to enjoy the moment you're in, because we can think about this savoring at different levels. So I was using the example of music, and that's more of a play state. That is where you are
Right.
engaged in something, and so
You're not totally under stress of something coming
so
down
you're
on you.
you're
Right?
way up here in your thymic window. You're experiencing this sort of, and there are moments where there's a wonderful muchness to things, right? And that's certainly savoring. I think
Yeah.
they're bowling,
There's
but, but
Okay, you are being distracted. We're going to do the ADHD episode coming up. But yeah, there are
Yes.
there are big oak trees around the studio, and things drop every occasionally.
Yeah.
But no one else
Again,
heard that, by the way, that's listening to this.
sure it's
Only
not
you.
a coconut tree? I
Your
think you got
response.
coconut trees. But so we can broadly we can think of a spectrum maybe of what the savoring could be, right? So there may be the small joys, and then there are the big ones that have that muchness. I think I mentioned we're going to see. I'm going to see the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra's Beethoven's Ninth.
Right.
And it's often referred to as the Ode to Joy. Everybody's heard that song, the
Sure.
Ode to Joy song, and it is really about that. It's about joy and brotherhood.
I'm glad
and,
Beethoven finally got there by the ninth anyway, but yeah.
well, oddly enough, that was like one of the worst periods of his life. He was dying, and he's lost his hearing, probably completely. It depends on who you ask. And he had written a suicide note, I think 10 years prior.
Mm.
And this is when his hearing had become even more profoundly damaged. So he was, and he was ill. He had disappeared from public life for almost 10 years. This was a commission work. Someone had asked him they were paying him to make this, to do this, but it is about, and Beethoven sets up a way of sort of. The whole symphony is about the things, the impediments to joy returning, and then there's sort of a final joy that's this ecstasy of brotherhood and connection and divinity and all that sort of stuff. But as I'm listening to this, I'm hoping I'll experience some joy. There's some wonderful moments. There's
Right.
some fugues, fugal moments in there, and I always think that's really cool, especially if you see them live, because suddenly it's like suddenly the symphony is moving like this, like a melody moves. But when you get to these fugal moments, it suddenly becomes static and seems to revolve in front of you. So it's like suddenly it's immobile, and you're in the middle of it, and that's a beautiful thing.
Cool.
That's how you can think of a lot of a Baroque music at its best generates that sort of mobile quality, sonic mobile. But
Interesting.
it's like a 3D image in a way that you're sort of encapsulated in. But
Cool.
see, I even find some joy talking about that.
Yeah, I like
But,
it.
So think about that savoring thing. So there's this continuum from the goal might be is we may not have as much issue savoring the big things, but how do we savor the smaller moments? How is it possible to savor every breath that you take throughout your day? Can you be present? And if these monks that meditate for 15 hours a day will often talk about that they have this constant state of at least mild euthymia, and that they've cultivated a surprise for every moment they're in, that there's something about they can really see that the things that arrive in the seconds in front of them are a gift, and they open the gift, and they are present with it. They find value in each of these gifts. And I mean, that's my guess is in at least late stage capitalism, that's asking way too much. And because the way capitalism works, it becomes something that then you feel stress and guilt over if you're not doing. and you're supposed to do it in a way that'll generate you more money in some form or fashion because it'll be co-opted that way. So there are lots of ways that could get you in trouble, but I wonder if there isn't something about how do we savor as much as we can the day that we're in, even if it's a Monday morning, right?
Right. Yeah. There's always there's some beauty and some joy to find. And wow, I think the capitalism kind of runs contrary to that, does it not? Because if I'm never satisfied. We had this conversation last week a little bit, but never quite satisfied with what you have, and you always want more. So that was my question about the billionaires last time. Look it up. But the notion that wait a minute, it's the small things that really bring you joy just as much. Winning and making money and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it sounds facetious, but even this morning I was sort of scheming and dreaming about how I'm going to get this Porsche. Like I keep thinking about it.
Keeps coming up.
I keep thinking about it. And on one level, it's a phantasmatic space that you can find yourself in, and it's a form of play. You just sort of imagine it. If it's something that you once you get eventually. I'll never will. I'll have a Porsche-shaped casket. How about that?
I think that's looking at some of the prices that I've seen. Yes, that's about all you. That's as close as you're gonna get.
But there would be some sort of initial joy in getting it, and there may be some joy. There would certainly be joy in driving it and to be able to experience over and over again.
Right.
But something you said is, what about the joy of waking up in the morning?
Yeah.
What about the joy of if you're working, you're sitting at your desk, and you just suddenly realize, hey, the world's kind of cool. I'm glad I'm in it.
Yeah.
Those may be the things that we talk about with the savoring, right? That would be, that because there are lots of very wealthy people who are ruminative, self-critical, unsatisfied. Right? There are. They do not savor, even though they could have whatever they want.
I don't know if you can wrap this up in a box and give it to someone. I think it's their individual work that they have to find that joy, and even in the small things. I know we in my house, that's what we
finding joy in the small things. That's what my wife said on our wedding night.
Oh man, if I could. I don't know. I need to edit all the jokes out and put them in some kind of a long reel here for people to get to savor. By the way, those things. Now, another goal, if I need to move on, but another goal, these characteristics of finding happiness is commit to your goals.
Commit to what are my goals?
You've got some goals, right?
My goal was to get committed.
Now that's mental health humor at its peak. Ladies and gentlemen, we're working hard here. I remember the old days. This is way older, but the Henny Youngman guys used to be on Ed Sullivan they had the drum after every joke. So that's what I'm dealing with, folks. So here we go. But this idea of goals. So what? All right. Speaking generalities, what are the big goals that human beings need to have? What is, if you had to list a few goals, and I know you're going to take off on this, but I'll wait for the answer after this exchange about to happen. But yeah, I mean, what should be? I kind of think of, taking care of others and doing good things in the world and being a good citizen and those kind of things. But where would you fall on? Okay, list those 3 to 5 or something like that goals.
You've got to be careful because goals can be weaponized in a late stage capitalist society. Goals could be, I have to keep.
Seems to be happening before our eyes.
So we have to be careful of what that means. I think if nothing else, we can use an example, particularly in a major depressive episode. There is a sense that life is goalless, that one is simply in this doldrum. A doldrum is when you are out at sea and the winds have died down, and so you're in this space. And there are, if you ever read any tales of the sea, particularly for clipper ships and things like that, they sometimes could be stuck in these doldrums for weeks on end. They just don't move. And so there is something about having no rudder, to be in a place of stupefying stasis. So that's the opposite of a goal, right? And so, at its most basic, a goal must orient you toward the moment you're in. It should give you this is probably too much info, but one of my favorite things about some of the neuropsychology stuff that I think is interesting is that dopamine really is a way of, at its most basic, is a way to invest us in the world. We are driven, not in that late stage capitalist need for more and more and more that we talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you be oriented? How can you investments? When I think of goals at its most in its most important or its smallest increment, is that it is a cultivated investment in something, right? And my guess is that if nothing else, our goal could be I think of Winnicott's prayer, Lord, may I be alive when I die.
Mm.
So maybe the goal is, how can I be alive in as many moments as I can, right?
Right.
That might be wonderful.
That makes
And then
sense.
you mentioned the altruistic goals of my goal is to be able to make the world a better place, that people around me would be better for me being in their lives. Suddenly there's an element of investment in others, right? So that's different. And I mean, there's also the goal of having that Porsche.
Well, I think it comes back to a little bit of this idea, and it goes back to the billionaires. I mean, yeah, all right, so you're a millionaire. That used to be the thing, becoming a millionaire.
Now it's trillionaires. That's what Musk has $1 trillion.
Musk is about to be a trillionaire. No way. But the ideal might be that you better have a goal or a plan if you're moving toward being that billionaire, becoming a billionaire. Because when you get there, you're going to be happy. I mean, you get all of this stuff surrounding you, and including your Porsche. And how has the world changed for you? What makes it better for you in this thing?
With the
and
Porsches,
so how did? Yeah, I know you're going to Porsche.
I'll suddenly get the respect I deserve.
Finally. All right, we're breaking this down. We're getting to the real situation here. Guy needs respect, and he's going to get a Porsche. But here's the thing. I would think that if you don't have a goal, it's like going on vacation with no destination. You're just out collecting more things. And when do you get the happiness that these billionaires are they looking for it? I don't know.
But think about what you just said, because I think notice that there's this tension between that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the best vacations you can have don't have an itinerary. You
Uh-huh.
simply show up, and
Right.
you are open to whatever is in front of you, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to get there first,
Yeah.
but yes.
And you could ruin a vacation by having these rigid goals